5th Hour Radio Show.
How did it all start? What was the origin of Tom Wopat?
Well, I started singing when I was a little kid in public schools and in Wisconsin. I grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin, and all my teachers kind of took me under their wing a little bit. I studied voice at the University of Wisconsin and did a bunch of summer stock over in Michigan at the Barn Theater. And then in 1978, I premiered on Broadway in my first Broadway show called I Love My Wife. And then I did a bunch of other shows, and that fall I got cast in Dukes of Hazzard, and there you go.
Speaking of Dukes of Hazzard, and you know, I don't want to dwell too much on that show. I'd like to talk a little bit about what your present things you got going on, but a lot of people don't know you were the first person to do that famous hood slide across the General Lee, and I've heard that kind of came about by accident. Is there any truth?
Oh yeah, it's definitely an accident. If you look at it, I mean, they use it in the trailer. So that was from our second episode where Daisy was Daisy was going to be a recording artist. Anyway, so we come blasting out of this recording studio with the bad guys hot on our tail, and I come running down a hill and slide across the hood. Eventually, what I was originally doing, like in rehearsal, I was kind of planting my foot on the fender on the uphill side and then jumping across. But when we did it in the shot, my heel hit the fender and the grass had been wet and my heel went out from under me and I slid across and wham, and in the window. And we started doing it on a regular basis.
And they just took off from there.
Yeah, the thing people don't know is that there was about the antenna had been broken off to a piece about 2.5 inches high. When I slid across the hood, I put about a 4-inch gash in my arm that I still have the scar from. So it wasn't without pain that we did that.
Okay. Now, as far as interview questions are concerned, I'm kind of going to go off the beaten path here for a second. Now, last night I was searching through YouTube, and I was doing some research for this interview, and I came across some footage from 1982 from the show The Battle of the Network Stars. Now, I watched a 10-minute tug-of-war competition between you and a team of 2 guys and 3 girls. No, you had the team of 2 guys and 3 girls.
We had the team with 2 guys and 3 girls, and they had 3 guys and 2 girls. They asked us if we wanted to just concede.
That didn't work out that way. You were the front man for that team, and you got Howard Cosell, you know, the biggest name in sports broadcasting. You know, he's calling the play-by-play. He's describing you. He's like, he's digging down deep. Just look at the upper body strength of Wopat. You know, and he's right.
Man, you're digging pretty deep to find that clip, I'll tell you what.
Well, it's an awesome clip. I mean, me and Randy, we watched it, and we watched it. It was one of the longest 10-minute, you know, it was the longest tug-of-war I've ever seen. And, I mean, do you ever go back and reflect on shows like that from your past?
I have never seen it. I remember it clearly. The thing that we had, our ace in the hole, was we had like a 300-pounder on the back of the rope. We had Parnell Roberts, who was doing that doctor show at that time. And I mean, he was an anchor, and he was a hell of an anchor. And so they, you know, we just kind of wore him down after a while. I think wasn't it Mr. T on the other side of the box?
Actually, go ahead, Randy.
Well, I think that was the next year, but man, me and Robert, you know, we were sitting there watching that, and we just kept looking at each other going, man, Tom Wopat is a beast.
I was a beast. That's a long time ago. That's 30 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
But you held that down. You made them guys look silly on the other side, man.
Well, that was fun. I couldn't walk upstairs the right way for about 2 days after that. My quads were so beat up. But that was extremely satisfying. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, we also watched the one you was talking about with Mr. T, and that was a much quicker competition, actually. That only lasted for like a minute. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Now we also watched one when you was, I can't remember the actor you was racing against in an obstacle course, but you had him beat, and you climbed a wall, and you kind of took a tumble, and you wasn't able to pull that victory out. But nothing compares. Yeah, nothing compares to that tug of war, though. That was classic. And like I said, I mean, you get a deeper appreciation, looking back that you had like Howard Cosell calling. Howard
Cosell was there, and gosh, what's his name? Robinson, who was coach of the Rams at the time, or either the Rams or maybe he was still at Southern Cal.
Okay.
Yeah, Coach Robinson.
On the YouTube video, all you could hear is Howard. But I mean, that's an awesome broadcaster. You got Howard Cosell.
Yeah, it was
calling
fun. He was a trip. Howard Cosell was a trip.
Hey, Randy, you got some questions for Tom?
Hey, man, I've got so many questions for Tom. I'm surely not going to get hardly any of them in. But let me ask you something, Tom. Of all these things that you've done, whether it's television or country music, rock and roll, Broadway, movies, what's your passion? What makes you the happiest out of all these things?
Well, I've always been a singer first, so that was always my thing. Now these days I'm doing jazz. We just wrapped up production on a new record that's called I've Got Your Number. That's kind of back in the day, like in the 60s and 70s, they did that kind of Bobby Darin, that fusion between big bands and orchestra. And that's kind of what we were going after. So we cut a record like that that's going to come out in February. So that kind of keeps me going. I like to write music as well. And I still keep my hand in films. I'm going to be in the new Quentin Tarantino film. He decided
I heard that.
Yeah, he decided to use me as a U.S. Marshal in his upcoming film. So that's going to be a lot of fun. The things too, I get to do a lot of other shit. A lot of other stuff.
Oh, you're all right.
Singing the national anthem at different ballparks around the country. I've sung the national anthem at Lambeau Field, which is right near where I grew up. And actually, I've done it. And no, I threw out a first pitch at Wrigley. I've not sung the anthem there yet. But I've sung it at, Yankee Stadium and Citi Field and all around the country. So that's always a trip, too. That's a blast, singing the anthem.
Have you always been into sports? Have you always been sports oriented?
Oh, yeah. I was, high school fullback and kind of if I must say so, I was kind of a track star. I threw the discus and shot and ran the 100 and did the high jump. And our whole family, I come from a family of 7 boys and 1 girl, and we were all a bunch of jocks.
Oh, awesome. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Randy.
Oh, it's all right, man. It's cool, man. We're just having a casual conversation. Does your acting ability come naturally, or is it something you've had to work at? I mean, when you do the acting thing?
Well, it came out of working in musicals when I was a kid. I mean, I started doing musicals when I was 12 years old, and so, I mean, just you figure it out as it goes along. Fortunately for me, it seems to have gotten better over the years. So, for example, 6-7 years ago, I did a show on Broadway, Glengarry Glen Ross, which is a David Mamet play, and a huge play and a tough play, and I got a lot of response from that, and it's actually kind of kick-started my film career again. I've got another film that's going to come out on ABC next year with, Medicine Woman. What's her name? Jane Seymour. I played Jane Seymour's ex-husband in a film that comes out early next year. So, the different stuff I do, the Broadway stuff, and the performance with the jazz trio. We're going to be playing actually in St. Joseph, Missouri, not too long from now, a couple of weeks. We're going to be there on the 14th, and it keeps me fresh. Got a lot of stuff to do.
With all the stuff you're doing, how do you find time to rehearse for all this stuff? I mean, that's a lot of information.
Well, the jazz thing, I've been doing it for a long time, so it's not like we got to kind of grind through a rehearsal for it. I got a bunch of different musicians who know the charts, and we just kind of get together and kind of whack our way through it, and it works out pretty well. I've been doing it, like I say, for a long time, and I kind of have a pretty good idea of what I'm doing with everything, and as long as you got a good right-hand man, and I got several guys that I use for musical directors. My main guy is a guy named Ted Firth, who's a young guy from upstate New York, and he's just terrific. He can play the piano. He can do orchestra arrangements. He did several arrangements on this new record and on Considerate Swung, which was the last one that was out. So, the main thing is to keep good people around you.
Oh, yeah. Well, I tell you, I really like you guys' version of Spinning Wheel. I mean, that's a song I grew up. Oh, man, dude, I love it. When you hear somebody's interpretation of a song, you're thinking, okay, well, what are we going to hear? And then when you guys started hyping out, I thought, yeah, I dig this.
One of the ones on that record I'm most proud of actually is the Steely Dan tune, which nobody covers Steely Dan. It's too hard in general, but it's a song called let's see, what is it? Which one is it?
It's the day of the expanding man. Yeah,
that's it.
I can't remember the name of it.
Deacon Blues. Awesome.
Deacon Blues. Yeah, man, that was great.
That's right. They call Alabama the Crimson Tide. Call me Deacon Blues.
It was not for me on there. You did not
say
for
what?
Me too. You did not for me on there also, didn't you? Or was that?
Yeah. That's a Gershwin tune. Now, what we did there was one of the things that's really cool about jazz is that, different artists take a song and they make it their own. In that particular case, there's an added verse that wasn't written by the Gershwins. That was actually the lyrics are written by a guy named Georgie Fame, who's an English jazz singer. And what he did was he took a Chet Baker solo. Chet Baker cut a copy of a version of the tune, and what he did was he took the trumpet solo and wrote lyrics to it. And it's really cool. So we did a version of that. We kind of did an updated version of his version, and it's kind of one of the neat things about music. It's like hip hop artists sampling Frank Sinatra or something. So it's always they're always using the stuff that's available in the lexicon and adapting it to the new style.
Well, I like it. I like it a lot. I know that anybody that listens to it that doesn't like it has got something wrong with them. I think it's awesome.
Well, that's nice of you to say. Hey, I just did a thing with Schneider. We did a thing. We did an appearance down in Baton Rouge. One of the guys, the guy who actually, his name is Scott Innes. He's the voice of Scooby-Doo, of all things. And he put together like a big autograph signing for all the remaining cast members of Dukes of Hazzard. So we were down there Saturday, and it was crazy. We had 20,000 people show up. And it was insane. It was wall-to-wall folks, and they had a bunch of entertainment, and John and I and Kathy and Jim Best, who played the sheriff, and Sonny Schroyer, who played Enos. Everybody was there. It was a blast.
That's awesome. Speaking of that, talking about the gang being all together like that, after seeing that reboot, and I don't even want to touch on that because in my eyes, the original...
they didn't show us any respect. That's the only problem with that thing.
Just in my opinion, and I don't want to speak for you at all, but just after watching that, and me and Robert even talked about this the other night, they would have had more success with you and John on there. And I'm telling you, that I would have paid hard cold cash to see that, for sure.
Well, I keep trying to talk John into writing something for him and me. He writes scripts. He's writing movie scripts, and sooner or later we got to do something together again.
Well, I tell you, I go as far as this. I'm a big Smallville fan, and when I saw Smallville, that Superman show.
Oh yeah.
When I saw you were playing the senator or whatever on there, and when I saw you, he pulled up in I think it was a Charger. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was a blue one.
Yeah, man, when you guys did that scene, I thought, okay, I can die happy now.
It's John's a pleasure to work with, and we actually have put together a little act that we do in casinos sometimes where I'll put together like a 8 or 10 piece band, and he'll show up, and we'll do a bunch of songs, and we'll talk to the fans, and it's a good evening. So maybe someday we'll be banging around there. There's a lot of casinos in your neck of the woods.
Oh yeah. Well, I just want to say one thing before we get back into the interview mode or whatever. You two guys driving that General Lee, I contribute most of the scars on my body to you two guys, because when I was a little kid, I can't tell you how many times I was pretending to be you guys and jump off a ditch or something and trying to make believe.
I can't be held responsible.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Dressing up as you guys on Halloween and everything, it's just such an honor to get to talk to you.
People still do it.
With all the diversity that you have, Tom, whether it's singing or acting, what's Tom Wopat's next goal? What are you looking to get into?
Well, hopefully the Tarantino thing will lead to some bigger movie parts. That would be interesting to me. Another thing that I've been kind of keeping in the back of my mind, I directed some of the episodes of Dukes of Hazzard, and I've directed some stage stuff. So that's probably one of the next things I'm going to do is try and do some more direction. I'm in my 60s now, and they won't really cast me as the romantic leading man in a Broadway musical anymore. So that avenue is a little more limited than it was, say, 15 years ago. So I'm looking at other stuff. I like to write. I write songs. There's a couple of songs on the new record that I wrote. But I do like performing a lot, and I think you're going to see me a lot more out there with the jazz trio and with some orchestras and that sort of thing, and also with Mr. Schneider, banging around, looking for trouble.
Oh yeah.
So I saw yesterday on Twitter that you were in the studio with Linda Pearl recording for one of her.
She used to play Fonzie's girlfriend 100 years ago. I don't know that I ever saw an episode with her in it, but she's actually a really talented singer. And we did a show a few years ago for a guy named Rex Reed in New York at the 92nd Street Y, and we did a couple of duets, and she has included them in her nightclub act. So we put them down yesterday in the studio, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, she's a very accomplished actress. She's been.
Yep,
I've seen
great
her
actress, good singer. She's a treat, and she's a babe too, which never hurts.
At this point in your career, what do you see yourself focusing more on? I mean, do you see yourself sticking more towards music, or maybe leaning more towards your acting?
Well, I think a little bit of both. I think that I'm going to be doing more film stuff and maybe a little more TV stuff. I've done some guest star stuff in the last couple of years. And then, with the records we're putting out, I really think that we're going to be doing a lot more musical performance. Probably not musical theater so much anymore, but more split up between the performing the jazz stuff and then doing movies and TV.